The smart mirror knows. I bought the mirror on a Thursday. It was sleek, modern, and promised to make my mornings easier. Weather, news, reminders, it seemed harmless. But I should have known the convenience was too good to be true. At first, it was just helpful. I checked my reflection while the screen displayed the time, a brief weather update, a calendar reminder. Nothing strange, nothing unnerving. Then, one morning, it showed a note I hadn't typed. "You forgot the fridge light on." Confused, I ran to the kitchen. The fridge door was wide open. I didn't leave it that way. I shrugged it off as a glitch. Technology is weird, I told myself. But the next day, the mirror displayed something else. "You're thinking about him again." I froze. Thoughts I hadn't spoken aloud, not even in text or emails, were appearing on the screen. My heart raced. I looked around my apartment. No one was there. The mirror didn't stop. Every day, it knew things about me, tiny private details. Where I left my keys. When I skipped breakfast, which emails I ignored. I tried to disconnect it. Unplug it overnight. The next morning, the screen lit up automatically, showing a message. Unplugging won't help. It began predicting my actions. "You will check the stove before leaving for work." I did. "You will take the park route today." I did. Every day, it knew. I installed cameras to see if anyone was tampering with it. Nothing. No one entered my apartment. Yet the mirror remained. Watching, waiting, predicting. Sometimes it showed figures behind me, blurred, shadowy, but when I turned, no one was there. I started sleeping with the bedroom door open, flashlight ready, every creak of the apartment setting my nerves on edge. I tried talking to it. "Stop showing me these things." Nothing. Silence. Or perhaps it listened in its own way. The screen flickered slightly, a subtle pulse, almost like a heartbeat. Eventually, it displayed a message I couldn't ignore. "You can't leave." I tried removing the mirror entirely. Disassembled it, disconnected wires, stored it in the closet. Morning came. It was back on the wall, polished and pristine. No sign of tampering. Only the screen lighting up. "I told you, you can't leave." Every attempt to escape was futile. I covered it with blankets. The next day, the blankets were folded neatly to the side. I tried blocking the Wi-Fi, cutting power. The mirror ignored every limitation. It was patient, deliberate, and persistent. The reflections became worse. It no longer just mirrored me. It showed me differently. Thin, gaunt, eyes wide with terror. Sometimes it showed scenes that hadn't happened yet. Spilled coffee, broken dishes, a stranger in the hallway. I asked friends to come over. They saw nothing. Just a normal mirror. The whispers of movement and subtle shadows were mine alone. I was losing my mind, or perhaps I was only beginning to see the truth. I realized then that the mirror wasn't just smart. It was alive, in its own way. Recording, predicting, manipulating. It knew more than I could understand, and it wasn't going away. The horror box collects stories like mine. Stories of everyday objects turned sinister, technology twisting reality, and ordinary homes becoming arenas of psychological terror. If you ever bring a device into your home that watches, predicts, or records, remember this. Some presences are patient. Some are clever. Some are permanent. Even now, I glance at the mirror while brushing my teeth or washing my face. Sleek, polished, and unassuming. But the screen flickers slightly, and I know it sees me. Not just me, but everything I do, think, and plan. Some things are not just inanimate. Some things are patient, waiting, watching, and always knowing. The silent passenger. It started as a regular drive home. I left work later than usual, the streets mostly empty. My car hummed quietly under the streetlights, and I enjoyed the solitude. At first, I thought it was my imagination. A flicker in the corner of my eye, a shadow on the passenger seat. I glanced over quickly. Empty. Just my coat draped over the seat. The next day, the same thing. Driving down the same route, streetlights flickering, and again a movement. I swore I saw a figure sit upright in the passenger seat. Heart pounding, I checked. Empty. I told myself it was stress. Maybe too many late nights. Maybe the exhaustion was getting to me. But then it started happening more often. Not just fleeting shadows. Sometimes I could feel it. Cold, heavy, a presence beside me, silent, watching. At first, I tried rationalizing it. Wind, streetlights, my reflection, anything. But the sensation was undeniable. It was there, every time. Even when I stopped at a red light, even when I parked at home. One night, I noticed something different. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, and I could hear faint breathing. Not my own, steady, slow, deliberate. I glanced at the passenger seat. Nothing, and yet I could feel it, the weight of someone just beside me. I started testing it. I drove different routes, left earlier, left later. Nothing mattered. The presence was always there. It didn't speak. It didn't move. Just sat, watched, waited. Sometimes I thought I caught glimpses of a face in the corner of my vision. Pale, blurred, almost featureless, but unmistakably human. Every time I looked directly, nothing. Empty seat. I tried leaving the car overnight. Locked, parked in the garage. When I returned in the morning, I could feel it immediately. Same weight, same cold. Always there. The feeling extended beyond the car. I started noticing it in the rearview mirror when walking past parked cars. A shadow sitting where it shouldn't, watching, silent. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus. Every ride, even around the block, became a test of endurance. Driving alone was no longer a reprieve. It was a challenge. I considered installing cameras. Dash cams, interior cams, motion sensors. I wanted proof. I wanted to see it, record it, anything. Footage never showed the passenger. Always empty. The cameras didn't lie, and yet I felt it. Every ride, every curve, every red light, the presence was beside me. One evening, I tried confronting it. Staring straight at the passenger seat, I said out loud, "I know you're there. Leave me alone." Nothing. Silence. Stillness. Then the air shifted. The temperature dropped sharply, and a whisper soft, almost drowned by the hum of the engine, brushed my ear. "I'm not leaving." My hands shook. My heart raced. I turned the car off, sat frozen. Empty seat, cold air. Whispering gone. But the weight still lingered. I decided to test leaving my car unlocked, doors open. I went inside my apartment, waited. Nothing. Silence. Relief. Or so I thought. Driving again the next day, the presence returned immediately. I couldn't escape it. Not in my apartment. Not on the streets. It followed. Silent, patient, relentless. I told friends. They laughed. "You're stressed," they said. "You've been working too late." But their words fell flat. They didn't understand. They hadn't felt the weight beside them, cold and heavy in the passenger seat. The feeling grew stronger, more insistent. Not malevolent, but impossible to ignore. It wasn't trying to hurt me. It simply existed. It waited. It observed. Sometimes I imagined looking over and seeing it clearly. Its face, its eyes, its expression. I never did. Only hints, shadows, blurred shapes, heavy weight. I tried ignoring it, talking to it, arguing with it. Nothing mattered. Every ride, every street, every empty road, it was there. Patient, silent, unyielding. The horror box preserves stories like mine. Stories of invisible threats, presences that exist without action, beings that follow without need for harm. If you ever feel a passenger beside you, silent, patient, remember this story. Some presences are patient enough to wait, quiet enough to linger, and silent enough to haunt forever. Even now, I glance at the passenger seat while driving. Empty, cold, silent, and I know it's there, as it has always been. Some things do not leave. Some things simply wait. The apartment that folded. I opened my eyes to the ceiling bending downward, though I knew it shouldn't. The corners of the room curved unnaturally, and I felt vertigo crawling up my spine. I sat up, hands gripping the bed. The walls seemed closer than they had been the night before. I turned slowly, and the door appeared farther away, stretching the hallway into impossible length. I blinked. It hadn't moved, yet everything felt wrong. I stepped toward the bathroom. The floor rippled beneath my feet, soft like water, but solid enough to walk on. I froze, heartbeat echoing. The reflection in the mirror hesitated, paused, then grinned faintly before mimicking my movements. A cup of coffee appeared on the counter. Steam curled into shapes, faint silhouettes of doors I hadn't seen, and hallways I had never walked. I reached for it. The memory of touching it felt decades old. The whisper returned. "Do you see what you are inside?" I couldn't respond. The shadows in the corners leaned closer, stretching unnaturally, forming shapes that almost resembled people, almost familiar, yet wrong. I tried the front door. It opened, but led me back into the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed, rearranging its contents subtly, as if learning my habits. I swallowed. The apartment was aware, alive, patient. The mirror pulsed. My reflection moved independently, performing gestures I hadn't taken. I reached toward it. The reflection raised its hand first, smiling faintly. I recoiled. The room hummed, as though approving its own trickery. I noticed photographs scattered on the floor. Faces warped, angles impossible, objects misplaced. Each picture was of my apartment, but subtly different. Every time I looked, new shadows appeared, lingering just out of focus, waiting for recognition. I tried to leave again. The hallway twisted, folding into itself. Each step returned me to the same center. Couch, mirrors, photographs, coffee cup. My heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of the apartment, which now seemed to breathe. I sank to the floor. The whispers grew louder, repeating thoughts I hadn't spoken aloud, predicting actions before I made them. Memories merged with possibilities. I realized my own life had become a loop the apartment could manipulate. The coffee mug floated, tilting toward me. Steam formed words. "You are already here." I recoiled, heart racing. Shadows stretched along walls, moving independently, observing my panic. Each step anticipated. The mirrors reflected impossible versions of the apartment. Rooms stretched sideways, ceilings bowed upward, and corridors looped infinitely. My reflections multiplied, gesturing, pausing, observing me. Some smiled. Some whispered my name. I tried sitting on the couch. It shifted slightly beneath me, aligning to my body in ways I hadn't anticipated. I pressed my hands to the cushion. It pulsed faintly, synchronized with my heartbeat, alive in subtle ways I could feel. I opened the diary that had appeared on the table. The handwriting was mine, but imperfect. New entries predicted actions I hadn't yet taken, and described fears I hadn't yet realized. The apartment was rewriting me in real time. The walls pulsed. Shadows leaned in, stretching impossibly long. I tried leaving again. Each door opened into a new corridor, all looping back to the center, to the mirrors, to the photographs, to the coffee cup. I noticed my reflection in the mirrors had paused. It no longer mimicked me. Instead, it watched, patient, waiting. I raised a hand. It didn't move. A chill ran through me. Time fractured. Seconds stretched, minutes collapsed, and hours overlapped. I felt the apartment breathing, alive, aware, patient. I was no longer simply a tenant. I was a fragment of its memory, a character in its endless loop. The whispers merged into one voice, my voice narrating choices I had never made, memories I had never lived, actions I would never take. I tried to scream. Only echoes returned, distorted and repeating. I glanced at the ceiling. It arched impossibly, folding downward, stretching the room in ways that defied physics. The floor rippled beneath me, subtle waves in the woodboards. I realized the apartment was bending reality itself. I sank to the couch, exhausted. Shadows leaned closer, photographs shifted, mirrors pulsed, coffee steamed. All was patient, all waited, all observed me. Every micro movement, every fleeting thought. I pressed my hands to my temples. The apartment pulsed, heartbeat in sync with mine. The diary floated open. Words appeared. You exist here now. I realized I would never truly leave. Morning arrived, or what I perceived as morning. Sunlight spilled across the floor in ordinary patterns, yet everything felt warped. The mirrors reflected infinite versions of me, all watching, all patient. The coffee mug steamed faintly. Words formed. The apartment folds, and you fold with it. I stepped back. Shadows leaned in. The walls pulsed. I realized, with absolute clarity, I had never left, and perhaps never would. The hallway that followed, I woke to the sound of footsteps in my apartment, though I was alone. They echoed softly, deliberately, following the rhythm of my heartbeat. I froze listening, as the hallway stretched slightly before my eyes. The door to the bedroom appeared farther than it had the night before. Each step toward it felt elongated, as if gravity itself was bending. I reached for the handle and hesitated, sensing something off. Shadows shifted in the corners of the hallway. They leaned closer, stretching unnaturally, forming faint silhouettes of people I hadn't seen but somehow recognized. My pulse raced. I felt eyes tracking every motion. A mirror reflected my movements with a delay. I raised my hand. It lingered a second longer, then moved, grinning faintly. I blinked. The world felt distorted, as though each frame were slightly out of sync. Objects in the apartment began moving subtly. A mug tilted, a pen rolled across the table, a book slid closer to the edge. Nothing fell, yet each motion seemed purposeful, anticipating my gaze and my touch. The whispers returned, soft, deliberate, almost patient. My name was spoken repeatedly, in my own voice, yet slightly off, like an echo from a memory I didn't have. I shivered, trying to locate the source. I tried leaving. The hallway stretched, folding into itself, each turn returning me to the living room, surrounded by the mirrors, shadows, photographs, and a cup of steaming coffee I hadn't poured. The diary appeared on the couch. The handwriting was mine, but imperfect, younger, observing. Pages detailed my habits, my fears, my routines. Every line referenced moments I hadn't yet lived, predicting choices I would soon make. The floor rippled beneath my feet. Each step produced subtle vibrations, resonating with my heartbeat. I pressed my hands to the wood, feeling a pulse beneath, like the apartment itself was alive, breathing, aware. The mirrors multiplied, reflecting impossible versions of the apartment. Corridors twisted, rooms stretched, ceilings bowed. Shadows moved within them, gesturing, waiting, observing, mimicking possibilities of my life I had never experienced. Time fractured. Seconds stretched, minutes collapsed, hours overlapped. Every sound echoed unnaturally. Whispers repeated thoughts I hadn't yet formed, revealing memories I hadn't lived. The apartment was narrating my life, rewriting it in real time. The coffee mug floated slightly, steam forming faint words. "You cannot leave yet." I recoiled. Shadows leaned closer, patient, stretching impossibly long, observing my panic, anticipating my reactions. I glanced at my reflection. It no longer mimicked me. It moved independently, performing gestures I hadn't taken yet. I raised my hand. It ignored me. My heartbeat accelerated as the room pulsed around me. The photographs on the floor shifted again. Faces warped, spaces distorted, shadows lingering where they hadn't been. Each image captured possibilities of my life, timelines that hadn't existed yet, choices I would never make. I sank to the floor. The whispers overlapped, echoing, predicting, controlling my focus. Past, present, and future merged. Memories I had never lived became vivid, tangible, pressing into me. The diary floated in front of me. Pages flipped rapidly. New entries described fears I hadn't yet known, actions I hadn't yet taken, moments I would never experience. Handwriting familiar yet alien narrated my existence. The walls pulsed subtly, synchronized with my heartbeat. Shadows leaned closer, stretching, morphing into impossible shapes. I tried leaving. Doors twisted into corridors that folded upon themselves, returning me to the center, the mirrors, the diary, the coffee mug. I pressed my palms to the mirrors. They pulsed, reflections multiplying infinitely. Each gestured, paused, observed me. Some smiled, some whispered. I could no longer distinguish which was real and which was a possibility. The whispers merged into one voice, my voice, narrating choices I had never made, memories I had never lived. Panic consumed me. I tried to run. The apartment pulsed, floor vibrating, walls stretching, shadows leaning closer. Time collapsed. Seconds, minutes, hours overlapped. I became aware that I was no longer merely a tenant. I was part of the apartment, a fragment of its memory, entwined in its endless loop. The coffee mug steamed faintly. Words formed. The hallway remembers, and you remain. I stepped back. Shadows leaned closer, pulsing, patient. Mirrors reflected infinite versions of me, all observing, all waiting. Morning arrived, or what I perceived as morning. Sunlight spilled across the floor in ordinary patterns, yet nothing felt ordinary. The hallway stretched infinitely in all directions. I realized then, with a sick certainty, that I had never left. The hallway followed me. The mirrors observed me. The shadows waited. The apartment was patient, and I belonged to it now. The street that rewrote itself. I stepped onto the quiet suburban street at midnight. Streetlights hummed softly. Houses lined up like rows of sleeping giants. I walked slowly, feeling the pavement pulse faintly beneath my feet. The houses weren't right. One driveway curved into the sidewalk impossibly. Mailboxes shifted slightly when I looked away. A familiar house appeared, then vanished when I blinked, leaving only the sound of distant footsteps. I turned a corner. The street stretched longer than it should have. Each house mirrored one I had just passed. I walked faster. The street extended endlessly, looping impossibly, folding space around me. A car passed silently. Its headlights flickered. I recognized the license plate. It belonged to my own old car, though I had sold it years ago. The engine hummed like it remembered me. Shadows leaned against fences, stretching unnaturally. They weren't human, yet their posture mimicked people I knew, neighbors, strangers, versions of myself. One turned and smiled, perfectly calm, before dissolving into the night. Street signs shifted subtly. One read my name. I blinked. Another blinked away, replaced by words I didn't recognize, but understood instinctively. You've been here before. I tried turning back. The street looped. Every path returned me to the same intersection, the same lamppost, the same houses. The air smelled faintly of asphalt and rain, though it hadn't rained. A dog appeared, sitting perfectly still on the curb. Its eyes reflected mine. I stepped closer, It tilted its head. Whispers emerged, my voice layered over itself, repeating thoughts I hadn't spoken. I stumbled back. The pavement rippled slightly, as if alive. I pressed my hands to it. Vibrations echoed through my fingertips, synchronized with my heartbeat. The street was aware, patient, observing. I tried entering a house. Doors led to interiors I didn't recognize. Rooms stretched impossibly, hallways folded. Mirrors reflected infinite versions of the street, looping endlessly, shadows moving independently. Streetlights flickered, shadows leaned closer. The dog blinked. Reflections multiplied. I realized the street itself was alive, bending space, memory, possibility around me. Every step I took was recorded, anticipated. A lamppost hummed. Its light pulsed, illuminating impossible angles. The houses shifted subtly, moving closer or farther apart, depending on where I looked. I felt dizzy. The street wasn't real, it was aware. I stumbled over the curb. Sidewalk tiles shifted beneath me, rearranging, forming paths I hadn't walked, leading me in circles. The whispers grew louder, narrating actions I hadn't taken, choices I would never make. I tried to run. The street extended, looping back. Cars appeared and vanished, lights flickering. Shadows stretched impossibly along the walls of houses, bending in directions that defied reality. A mailbox opened itself. Letters slid out, blank, then rearranged to form words. You belong here. I shivered, pressing my palms against the pavement. It pulsed faintly, synchronized with my heartbeat. The dog vanished. Reflections in windows multiplied. Each reflected a version of me, moving independently, gesturing, pausing, observing. I pressed my hands to my temples. The street pulsed, alive, patient. Time fractured. Seconds stretched, minutes collapsed, hours overlapped. Each step, each breath, each glance folded into itself. The street was aware, bending reality, folding me into its rhythm. I sank to the curb. Shadows leaned closer. Houses shifted subtly. Reflections pulsed. Whispers merged into my own voice, recounting memories I hadn't lived, actions I hadn't taken, fears I hadn't yet realized. Streetlights flickered again. The pavement rippled beneath me. Every house, every corner, every shadow pulsed with awareness. I realized fully. I was no longer walking the street. I had become part of it. The street hummed. Shadows leaned closer. Reflections multiplied infinitely. The mailboxes shifted. Pavement tiles rearranged. Every step, every heartbeat, every micro-movement became part of its endless observation. Morning arrived, or what I perceived as morning. Sunlight fell across the pavement in ordinary patterns, yet nothing was ordinary. Houses, shadows, reflections, whispers all patient, observing, aware. I pressed my hands to the ground. It pulsed. The street waited, patient, alive. And I understood fully. I had never truly entered or left. I belonged here now, folded into its memory, eternal, observed. The mall that reopened, I walked into the abandoned mall because a friend dared me. The automatic doors slid open silently, though the place had been closed for years. Fluorescent lights flickered, buzzing like a pulse. The first store I passed was a clothing shop, empty, mannequins lined up as if waiting. Their eyes seemed to track me. I blinked. When I looked again, one had shifted, leaning slightly toward the exit. The escalators moved without power. Each step creaked, groaned, then lifted me silently upward. I reached the second floor. Every shop was open, shelves stocked, yet no sound existed beyond the buzz of lights. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. No one. Then again. They echoed, deliberate, matching my pace, pausing when I paused. I walked faster. They kept pace. I stopped. They stopped. A store mirrored my movements. I raised a hand. The reflection did not follow immediately. It waited a beat, then smiled faintly before mimicking me. I shivered. The mall was aware. Signs flickered. Sale, open, welcome back. None of them had been there before. The air smelled faintly of popcorn and carpet cleaner, as if the mall remembered activity it hadn't hosted in decades. I stepped into the food court. Tables rearranged themselves subtly when I looked away. A soda cup slid along the floor, stopping just short of my shoe. I kicked it gently. It rolled back, waiting. Shadows stretched unnaturally. Ceiling lights warped faintly, bending toward me, pulsing. The escalators reversed without warning, lifting and lowering with no discernible pattern. I realized the mall itself moved around me. A soft whisper echoed from the music store. "You shouldn't be here." The voice was mine, but unfamiliar, layered over itself. I froze, heartbeat hammering, unsure if it was real or imagined. I tried exiting. Doors led to hallways I didn't recognize. Every turn brought me back to the food court. Shops flickered between open and closed. The mall was folding space, looping reality around me. Mannequins shifted subtly. A child-sized figure appeared in a doorway, standing perfectly still, staring. When I approached, it blinked. Not eyes reflections of me. I stumbled back, terrified, heart racing. I climbed the escalator again. The mall stretched upward endlessly, floors folding atop floors in impossible angles. Shops multiplied, corridors twisted, mirrors reflected impossible versions of the food court. Time fractured. Announcements repeated. "Welcome back. You belong here." Each repetition slightly different, each voice anticipating my thoughts, fears, movements. I pressed my palms to the railing. It pulsed faintly. I entered the arcade. Machines blinked with my high scores, initials I hadn't entered. Lights flashed in sync with my heartbeat. Sounds of games I hadn't played echoed softly, teasing familiarity. A janitor appeared, pale, smiling faintly. I asked the time. He didn't respond. Instead, he pointed toward a hallway that hadn't existed before, then vanished. I followed. The floor pulsed beneath me. The mall hummed. Every surface vibrated with awareness. Shadows bent around corners, gesturing subtly. Mirrors reflected impossible shoppers. Faces I hadn't seen yet, somehow recognized. I realized the mall observed every micro-movement. I tried exiting again. Doors opened onto hallways looping infinitely. Every path led back to the central court. The ceiling pulsed. Lights stretched. Signs flickered. I was trapped inside its memory, its rhythm, its awareness. The whisper returned. "We remember you. And you belong here?" I pressed my hands to the floor. It pulsed like a heartbeat, syncing with mine. The mall was alive, patient, aware. Tables shifted, chairs rearranged, soda cups rolled. Arcade machines blinked impossibly fast, displaying new games I had never played. Shadows leaned closer, stretching, patient. Mirrors pulsed, reflecting infinite versions of me. I sank to the floor. Whispers merged into my voice, narrating thoughts I hadn't had, actions I hadn't taken. Time collapsed, stretched, folded. I realized I was no longer a visitor. I was part of them all. A memory folded inside it. Morning arrived, or what I perceived as morning. Sunlight from skylights fell unevenly, distorted. Signs flickered. "Welcome back. You belong. Open." Reflections, shadows, objects all pulsed with quiet attention. I understood fully. I would never leave. The mall had rewritten space, memory, and possibility around me. Every step, every glance, every heartbeat became part of its endless observation. The escalators moved silently. Machines blinked. Tables shifted. Shadows stretched. Reflections multiplied. I pressed my hands to the floor again. It pulsed, The mall waited, patient. And I realized I had never truly entered or left. The train that didn't stop. I boarded the late-night train because it was the last one out of the city. The car was empty, silent except for the soft hum of the engine. I sat down, pulling my coat tighter around me. The doors shut behind me, but the station never left. Lights blurred outside the window, flickering like they were broken, yet the scenery never changed, repeating endlessly. The same lamppost, the same graffiti, the same empty tracks. A conductor appeared in the aisle, uniform crisp, but face blurred. He didn't speak. I tried asking the time. He simply pointed forward, then vanished. I blinked. The train hummed, steady, endless. I looked at the other seats. Shadows sat in them, not human, not clearly inhuman, but perfectly still. Each mimicked the posture of someone I had seen before, someone I knew or thought I knew. The lights flickered. My reflection appeared in the window, but it moved slightly behind me, a second too slow. It smiled when I didn't, raised a hand I hadn't lifted. I froze, heartbeat hammering. I tried the doors, locked. Not physically locked, but something invisible prevented me. I pressed harder. The reflection pressed too, smiling wider. I stumbled back, realizing the train was aware, waiting. The announcements began, a voice I didn't recognize, but somehow knew. Next stop, your choice. The words echoed impossibly, reverberating through the car, folding space, bending sound, bending my perception. The shadows stirred slightly, leaning closer. Each movement mirrored a thought I hadn't had yet, a decision I hadn't made. The train responded to me, learning me, observing me, anticipating my panic. I moved to the back car. The seats were rearranged. Passengers appeared, faded, vanished. Each repetition slightly different. I realized the train wasn't moving through the city. It was moving through time or possibility or memory. The reflection in the window pulsed. My own image winked. I blinked. A whisper followed. Do you remember boarding? I hadn't remembered, or perhaps I had always been here, lost in this rhythm. I tried calling someone. The phone didn't work. The screens in the train flickered, showing snippets of my day choices I hadn't made, conversations I hadn't had, paths I hadn't taken. Yet they felt real. The train stopped, or seemed to. Lights flickered, doors opened, but the platform was empty, infinite. I stepped forward. The floor stretched. Each step returned me to the same car, same seat, same reflection. A passenger appeared next to me, pale, calm, unblinking. Their voice was my voice, reciting thoughts I hadn't spoken, fears I hadn't known. I tried to speak. No sound emerged. The train hummed, patient. I realized the car was endless. Each window reflected impossible scenes. Tracks bending back on themselves, stations repeating, night folding into night. The train was alive, aware, patient, observing me in infinite variations. Time fractured, seconds stretched, minutes compressed. I pressed my palms to the seat. It pulsed faintly. My heartbeat synced with the train. Shadows moved independently, gestures unmade, moments unexperienced. I tried exiting again. The doors opened, revealing the same platform, same lights, same tracks. Every attempt looped me back to the center of the car. The train was patient. The train was aware. The reflection smiled wider, raised a hand. Steam from a cup of coffee appeared in front of me, swirling into words. You will never leave. I shivered, heart pounding. The announcements repeated. Next stop, your choice. But every choice led back here. Every path, every turn, every motion folded into itself. The train was infinite, eternal, and I was part of it. I sank into the seat. Shadows leaned closer. Windows pulsed, reflecting infinite versions of me, gestures unmade, moments unexperienced. Every object, every sound, every breath was deliberate, attentive, alive. I realized fully I was no longer a passenger. I was a fixture, a memory folded into the train's awareness. I existed only as a part of its endless rhythm, observed, recorded, rewritten. The lights dimmed. The humming rose. Reflections multiplied. Shadows stretched impossibly. The coffee steamed faintly, swirling into words. You are always here. I pressed my palms to the floor. The vibrations synchronized with my heartbeat. The announcements echoed again. Next stop, your choice. I realized then, with certainty, I would never leave.